Hey everybody, hope and pray that you're doing well. Today, as we come to our word from the Word, and today that word is cry. Cry. Now, I know we may hear all the time, real men don't cry. Well, Job had been through quite a bit, and I'm sure there were plenty of tears that were shed. And I know we say that as a big arrogant thing about men that, oh, no, we're not going to do that. But let's honestly understand that all of us, when we realize the depth of our sin, that should be enough to cause us to cry. When we realize the grace of God, oh, compared to the wretchedness of our lives and our sin, I tell you what, that will emotionally stir up anyone. I don't matter. It doesn't matter how tough you are. But as Job had been going through so much, and today in Job chapter 35, and he's continuing to hear what Elihu has to say, there's really something that he's getting to the point. Elihu, when he's speaking to Job, he's saying, "Look, you've been saying a whole lot, but you haven't been doing a lot of listening." Now, he'd been listening to his companions, he'd been listening to his friends, but you ever notice that when we get in trials and in circumstances, that a lot of times we quit listening to God? We spend so much time arguing our point and trying to prove our case that we're not taking time to listen from God. And I think even part of what Elihu's saying is Job, if you just hold on, maybe God's been trying to talk to you anyway, but you've been too busy rambling on and arguing with your friends to even listen. Now, whether or not that's exactly what he meant, I'm not sure, but I can tell you from the part that we're going to read today, there's something specific that he says that I want us to see. Now, if you look today, Job chapter 35, looking at verses 12 through 16, he says, "There they cry out, but he does not answer because of the pride of evil men. Surely God will not listen to empty talk, nor will the Almighty regard it." And here's the line in verse 14. "Although you say you do not see him, yet justice is before him, and you must wait for him. And now, because he has not punished in his anger, nor taken much notice of folly, therefore Job opens his mouth in vain. He multiplies words without knowledge." In other words, Job, you're saying a whole lot, but you're not saying anything worthwhile. Now, to be fair, Job has said a lot of things that were true. His companions had said a lot of things that were true. Elihu says a whole lot of things that are true. Ultimately, though, God is the only one who owns those truths. Most, especially the three companions, had misapplied some truths and really looked at things completely backwards and tried to really tempt Job into believing what Satan would have us to do. And that's to believe that God is like a Santa Claus figure who just gives what we wish and lifts up the good and only punishes the bad. But that attitude, that outlook or that perspective automatically makes us think that we deserve more than we have. That's an arrogant spirit. That's not humility. That's not being humble as God calls us to be. But that right there in verse 14 where it says, you say that you don't see him. Now, I don't know about you. How many times have you cried out to God and you felt like you didn't get an answer? How many times have you cried out and felt like you were just praying and praying and praying and praying and just continuing to, and you never heard from God? Well, I've said this before, and I've used the illustration before as I had read somewhere else, just to think about that the teacher is always silent during the test. And so he had prepared Job for this moment, whether he knew it or not. And so he was allowing him to be tested, and God was ready and willing to give him the answer in his time, not in Job's time. Part of what Elihu was looking at is saying, look, you can't demand what time you want to see God in court. You can't demand those things of Almighty God. That was the attitude that he was attacking, that Elihu was attacking. But here, if you take anything today, I pray that you would take this thought and this truth, that even though you may not see God, He sees you. Even though you may not see God, He sees you. I'm reminded of a story there, and it's very short there in John chapter 1. The interaction between Philip and Nathanael. He goes to tell Nathanael that he's found Jesus, and he makes the comment, "What good could come out of Nazareth?" And when Jesus sees Nathanael, and he gives him high praise when he first sees him, and immediately Nathanael says, "Well, how do you know me?" And Jesus says, "Look, before Philip came to talk to you, I saw you when you were there under the fig tree. I saw you." Nathanael wasn't looking for God at that moment. Or maybe he was and he couldn't see him. Maybe he was crying out to God, hoping and praying to see him, but he didn't see anything. He didn't hear anything. But here now his friend comes and says, "Well, hey, just come and see." And when Jesus comes up to him and says, "Hey, I saw you before Philip even came." And immediately Nathanael says, "Oh, you are the Christ." And Jesus says, "Just because I said I saw you?" See, shouldn't that be enough for God just to say to you today, "I see you. I see you in your pain. I see you in your struggle." That right there should be enough to know that He loves you and He sent His Son to die for you. And the least that we can do is live our lives for Him. So when you're tempted to cry out because God doesn't see you or because you don't see God, remember, you can turn those tears into tears of joy. Because even though you don't see Him, He always sees you. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.